Page 150. Visions of nightmen and fire mixed in a cauldron of fear awakened me long before dawn. Automatically I rolled toward the comforting presence of Big Ma, but she was not beside me. A soft light still crept under the door from Mama and Papa's room, and I immediately hurried toward it. As I opened the door and stepping into the shadowy room, lit now only by the flickering of the low fire, Big Ma was saying, "Y'all start messing with these folks down here, no telling what'll happen." "Is it better to just sit back and complain about how they do us?" Mama snapped, her voice rising. "Everybody from Smelling Creek to Strawberry knows it was them. But what do we do about it? We line their pockets with our few pennies and send our children up to their store to learn things they've got no business learning. The older children are drinking regularly now, even though they don't have any money to pay. And the Wallaces are simply adding the liquor charges to the family bill. Just more money for them as they ruin our young people. As I see it, least we can do is stop shopping there. It may not be real justice, but it'll hurt them and we'll have done something." Mr. Turner and the Averys and the Laniers and over 24 other families, and perhaps even more, say they'll think about not shopping there if they can get credit somewhere else. We owe it to the Berries. "Frankly," interrupted Uncle Hammer, "I'd rather burn them out myself." "Hammer, you go to burning and we'll have nothing," Mama retorted. "Ain't gonna have nothing now, no way," replied Uncle Hammer. "You think by shopping up at Vicksburg you're gonna drive them Wallaces out? Then you got no idea of how things work down here. You forgetting Harlan Granger backs that store?" "Mary Child Hammer's right," Big Ma said. "I'm doing what I told y'all about this land because I don't want some legal thing to come up after I'm gone that let Harlan Granger get this place. But we go back in folks' credit with our land, we lose it sure. And we do that I couldn't face Paul Edward." "I didn't say we should back it," Mama said, "but we're just about the only family with any collateral at all." Papa looked up from the fire. "That may be, honey, but we put up this land to back this thing, and it'll be just like giving it away. Times like they are, it ain't likely that any of these people can pay the bills they make, as much as they might mean to, and if they can't pay, where would we be? We've got no cash money to pay other folks' debt." He shook his head. "No, we'll have to find another way. Go to Vicksburg, maybe, and see what we can arrange." His eyes fell upon me in the shadows, and he leaned forward. "Cassie? What is it, sugar?" "Nothing, Papa," I mumbled. "I just woke up, that's all." Mama started to rise, but Papa motioned her down and got up himself. Escorting me back to bed, he said gently, "Got no cause for bad dreams, Cassie girl. Not tonight, anyway." "Papa," I said, snuggling under the warm quilts as he tucked them around me, "we gonna lose our land?" Papa reached out and softly touched my face in the darkness. "If you remember nothing else in your whole life, Cassie girl, remember this. We ain't never gonna lose this land. You believe that?" "Yes, sir, Papa." "Then go to sleep. Christmas is coming." "Books!" cried Little Man on Christmas morning. For Stacy there was The Count of Monte Cristo, for me The Three Musketeers, and for Christopher John, Little Man, 2 different volumes of Aesop's Fables. On the inside cover of each book in Mama's fine hand was written the name of the owner. Mine read, "This book is the property of Miss Cassie Deborah Logan. Christmas, 1933. "Man sold me them books, told me these 2 was written by a black man," Papa said, opening my book and pointing to a picture of a man in a long fancy coat and a wig full of curly hair that fell down to his shoulders. "Name of Alexander Dumas, a French fellow. His daddy was a mulatto, and his grandmama was a slave down on one of them islands. Martinique, it says here. Man said to me they write hard reading for children, but I told him he didn't know my babies. They can't read 'em now, I said, they'll grow into 'em." In addition to these books, there was a sock full of once-a-year bought licorice, oranges, and bananas for each of us, and from Uncle Hammer a dress and a sweater for me, and a sweater and a pair of pants each for Christopher John and Little Man. But nothing compared to the books. Little Man, who treasured clothes above all else, carefully laid his new pants and sweater aside, and dashed for a clean sheet of brown paper to make a cover for his book. And throughout the day, as he lay upon the deerskin rug, looking at the bright, shining pictures of faraway places, turning each page as if it were gold, he would suddenly squint down at his hands, glance at the page he had just turned, then dash into the kitchen to wash again, just to make sure. After the church services, the Averys returned home with us for Christmas dinner. All 8 of the Avery children, including the 4 preschoolers, crowded into the kitchen with the boys and me, smelling the delicious aromas and awaiting the call to eat. but only the eldest girls who were helping Mama, Big Ma, and Mrs. Avery prepare the finishing touches to the meal were allowed to remain. The rest of us were continuously being shooed out by Big Ma. Finally, the announcement we were all waiting for was made, and we were allowed to begin the Christmas feast. The meal lasted for over 2 hours through firsts, seconds, and thirds, talk and laughter, and finally, dessert. When we were finished, the boys and I, with Claude and TJ, went outside, but the half-inch layer of snow made everything sloppy, so we soon went back in and joined the adults by the fire. Shortly afterward, there was a timid knock on the front door. Stacy opened the door and found Jeremy Sims standing there looking frozen and very frightened as he peered into the bright room. Everyone turned to stare at him. Stacy glanced around at Papa, then back at Jeremy. You want to come in?" he asked awkwardly. Jeremy nodded and stepped hesitantly inside. As Stacy motioned him toward the fire, Uncle Hammer's eyes narrowed, and he said to Papa, "He looks like a Sims." "I believe he is," agreed Papa. "Then what the devil—" "Let me handle it," Papa said. Jeremy, who had heard, flushed a deep red and quickly handed Mama a small burlap bag. I brung them for y'all." Mama took the bag. As she opened it, I peered over her shoulder. The bag was full of nuts. "Nuts?" I questioned. "Nuts? Why, we got more nuts now than we know what—" "Cassie," Mama scowled. "What have I told you about that mouth of yours?" Then she turned to Jeremy. "This is very thoughtful of you, Jeremy, and we appreciate them. Thank you." Jeremy nodded slightly as if he did not know how to accept her thanks, and stiffly handed a slender, paper-wrapped object to Stacy. "Made this for you," he said. Stacy looked at Papa to see if he should take it. For a long moment, Papa studied Jeremy, then he nodded. It ain't much," stammered Jeremy, as Stacy tore off the wrapping. Made it myself." Stacy slid his fingers down the smooth, sanded back of a wooden flute. "Go ahead and try it," said a pleased Jeremy. "It blows real nice." Again, Stacy looked at Papa, but this time Papa gave him no indication what he should do. "Thanks, Jeremy. It's real nice," he said finally. Then, flute in hand, he stood uncomfortably by the door, waiting for Jeremy to leave. When Jeremy did not move, Papa asked, "You Charlie Sims' boy?" Jeremy nodded. Yes, sir." "Your daddy know you here?" Jeremy bit his lower lip and looked at his feet. No, sir, I reckon not." "Then I expect you better be getting on home, son, before you come looking for you." "Yes, sir," said Jeremy, backing away. As he reached the door, I cried after him, "Merry Christmas, Jeremy!" Jeremy looked back and smiled shyly. "Merry Christmas to y'all, too." TJ made no comment on Jeremy's visit until both Papa and Uncle Hammer had left the room. He was afraid of Papa and downright terrified of Uncle Hammer, so he had never much to say when either was around. But now that they had gone outside with Mr. Avery, he said, "You ain't gonna keep that thing, are you?" Stacy looked malevolently at TJ, and I knew what he was thinking of the coat. "Yeah, I'm gonna keep it. Why?" TJ shrugged. "Nothing. 'Cept I sure wouldn't want no whistle some old white boy been blowing on." I watched Stacy closely to see if he was going to allow himself to be goaded by TJ. He was not. "Oh, stuff it, TJ," he ordered. "Oh, man, don't get me wrong," said TJ quickly. "You want to keep that old thing, it's up to you. But for me, somebody give me something, I want it to be something fine, like that pretty little pearl-handled pistol." When the Averys had left, Stacy asked, "Papa, how come Jeremy give me this flute? I mean, I didn't give him nothing." "Maybe you did give him something," said Papa, lighting his pipe. "No, sir, Papa, I ain't never give him nothing." "Not even your friendship?" "Well, not really. I mean, he's a crazy kid and he likes to walk to school with us, but you like him?" Stacy frowned, thinking. "I told him I didn't want him walking with us, but he keeps on anyway, and the white kids laugh at him 'cause he do. But he don't seem to let it bother him none. I suppose I like him all right. Is that wrong?" "No," Papa said carefully, "that ain't wrong." "Actually, he's much easier to get along with than TJ," Stacy went on. "And I suppose if I let him, he could be a better friend than TJ." Papa took the pipe from his mouth, rubbed his mustache, and spoke quietly. "Far as I'm concerned, friendship between black and white don't mean that much, 'cause it usually ain't on an equal basis. Right now, you and Jeremy might get along fine, but in a few years, he'll think of himself as a man. But you'll probably still be a boy to him, and if he feels that way, he'll turn on you in a minute. But, Papa, I don't think Jeremy'd be that way. Papa's eyes narrowed, and his resemblance to Uncle Hammer increased. We Logans don't have much to do with white folks, you know why? 'Cause white folks mean trouble. You see blacks hanging around whites, they're headed for trouble. Maybe one day whites and blacks can be real friends, but right now the country ain't built that way. Now you could be right about Jeremy making a much finer friend than TJ ever will be. The trouble is, down here in Mississippi, it costs too much to find out. So I think you'd better not try. Stacy looked full into Papa's face and read his meaning. On my way to bed, I stopped by the boys' room to retrieve an orange Christopher John had swiped from my stocking, and spied Stacy fingering the flute. As I stood in the doorway, he lingered over it, then carefully rewrapping it, placed it in his box of treasured things. I never saw the flute again.